in my hour of darkness, she is standing right in front of me, speaking words of wisdom. Let it be. 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 Whisper words of wisdom. Let it be. And when the broken-hearted people living in the world, there will be an answer, let it be. For though they may be parted, there is still a chance that they will see. There will be an answer, let it be. Let it be, let it be, let it be, let it be. There will be an answer, let it be. Let it be, let it be, let it be, let it be. Whisper words of wisdom, let it be. And when the night is cloudy, there is still light that shines on me. Shine until tomorrow, let it be. I wake up to the sound of music. Mother Mary comes to me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be. Let it be, let it be, let it be. There will be an answer, let it be. Let it be, let it be, let it be. Whisper words of wisdom, let it be.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And now we will move on to Ina. So you want to set it up, or do you want to show 2 days in Harlem? Are you on?
I'll be Ina. Well,
Ina? Ina.
Am I unmuted now?
Yes, you are muted.
Wow. I mean, you've just been like educated. That video was so detailed about every year and every moment. I thought that video was really profound, because when you're learning about these things in school, you're not connected to it because they're not expressing it to you in a way that you're part of the story. But that video, I really enjoyed the presentation made by Miss D. That was great.
See, and she is the vice president now of NJOF.
Yes. And everybody's been just waiting so patiently. I see that UA are you here? UA? He left. He was here.
No, I'm here.
Oh, okay. Here you go. So listen, we're ready to have a conversation. I am the founder of the Kwanzaa Film Festival, and we wanted to talk about everything that's going on now, this energy that's out there and what's going on in the past and what's going to go on in the future. How do we apply those principles in activism when we are doing the art, film, television, theater, and whatever other art medium you may be in? We wanted to discuss that. So what I'm going to ask is those who are part of this workshop to unmute themselves, and I'll call your name and give us just like a line or two about who you are, what you do, and that kind of thing. And then I'm going to go into some questions. So let's start with, let me see, I'm looking at let's start with Herb Brooks of Urban Crush.
Hi, Herb Brooks. Thank you all for having me here. Appreciate it. Been working with Ina since last year. Working with the festival. but I'm in film distribution, digital distribution, to be specific. And I'm working with a company called DMR, Digital Media Rights, and we are, we're international, but what we're doing right now is building well, not right now, for the past year, since we've gotten some great deals with Nigerian films, we've been working on our accumulation of and distribution of African and African American films, all films from the diaspora, Caribbean, everywhere. So that's my mission right now. I've been working with it for a while in a couple of networks, a couple of like large networks, but when I got to DMR, I really wanted to make the effort to get our films out there. So what we're starting first is, we do distribute films, and we started a YouTube channel called Afro, and we are that's kind of our marketing arm, but we also it also really helps to show all of the film I have me on.
Thank you. And okay, let me clarify. It's Afro Crush. Afro Crush. I'm so sorry. And
No
so
worries.
we also have Takeema Davis, actress, writer, educator, mother, and everything else. Takeema.
Unmute.
Peace and blessings. Well, you guys have been somewhat exposed to a portion of who I am as an individual. I am consider myself to be a performing artist and just a voice of my generation. And I, aside from looking for projects that express the best version of us on film, I, as a personal goal, is I'm about 3 semesters away from acquiring a master's degree in mental health counseling. So I am on both sides trying to just assist us as a people in recognizing, where we are strong, where we are weak, and just the whole process of healing. So as I join that whole mental health piece and awareness with the arts, I try to tailor my writing in such of a way and just make the connections that will represent us on film as positive as it can be. I feel like, as of recent, there's a dark side to psychology, and this psychology that I've been studying. So I'm kind of over studying and, where we are oppressed and all that good stuff. And right now, my direction is kind of like, what are we going to do? Like, what are the things? I think the dark side of psychology has gotten us into this place, and we have to use psychology, which is just as simple as putting hopeful pieces on film, giving children the opportunity to see images of themselves that are so important. So that's kind of where I am and what my contributions and passions lie in connecting the arts to mental health. Yeah.
Thank you, Takeema. And next, William Robinson of GComNet. William Robinson.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Greetings to all. My name is William Robinson, and I'm happy to be here sharing this very, very special day with all of you. Lots of emotions percolating, lots of percolating emotions. This recognition of Juneteenth today, and I guess it coincides with everything that's going on in the country. It's a very, very special time. There's a gentleman in my mind who we lost during the COVID-19, which is still going on in our country today. His name is John Norris, and I know this was a very, very special holiday for him. He happens to be the father of Ina Norris,
Yes.
who's the playwright and founder of Kwanzaa. And I wish he could be here to see the manifestation of a holiday which he held so very close and dear to him.
Yeah.
So in partial, in part, in whole, I would like to dedicate my presence, and our presence here in this new revolution that's about to take place, this awakening, if you will, this Black Spring, or this American Spring, to him, in honor of him, to all of our ancestors.
Thank
So,
you. Thank you very much, Billy. And I call him Billy, but his name is William Robinson. And so we also have Robert U.A. Hogan, which I call another name. He can tell us how he wants us to call his name.
Yes. First, I want to just say thank you, everyone today, for bringing us together. It's been a 2 or 3 months of Zooms that has been collaborating with Black minds that a year ago we probably could not fathom that we were this close to each other, you know. And so that song, Let It Be, as a kid, I remember the song, and it's actually was the Beatles' last studio album. And for after that history, like Ina said, that history that came with bullets that was so different when I was in school learning those dates, and was fascinated about, leading up to our emancipation, if we do have that now. I always wondered what would have happened if the Confederate Army would have won, and it's always been inside of my mind. And so I'm A.U. Hogan. I'm a writer, I'm an actor. I really believe that some of our writing has to gear towards the development of our social, economic, conscious culture. And we have to begin to do that. And later on, we'll probably get into the conversation. I'm also a co-founder of an organization called Life Campaign, fight it's a crisis management system that's funded by the city of New York under the Mayor's Initiative of Anti-Gun Violence and Office to Prevent Gun Violence. So I hope we have a good time speaking, and you'll probably learn more about me from our conversation. Thank y'all. Peace.
Thank you. And the next person I would like to introduce is Floyd Webb of Black Cinema.
Unmute.
Unmute. You have to unmute.
Black World Cinema.
Black World Cinema. I'm sorry.
BlackWorldCinema.net.
Yes.
And BWCTV.tv. Yeah. How you guys doing today?
Okay.
Yeah. I'm well, where do I start? Because I got a lot on my mind, especially regarding the Juneteenth thing. I was born in Mississippi in the 1950s. And the thing that I was taught was that we were never slaves, we were always illegal captives. Mm-hmm. And that our captivity was defined by our resistance. And in all this talk about Juneteenth, nobody ever acknowledges the resistance, the existence of the maroon societies, Mound Bayou, Mississippi, Little Africa, outside of in the forest, outside of Clarksdale, in the Delta, down in the bayous of Mississippi, John Horse, and the Seminole, Billy Bowlegs. We're talking about all this, but we ain't acknowledging our resistance. And so it makes me like, I'm 67 years old, I got grandkids, I got kids. And the one thing that I told them is we were never slaves, we were always rebellious. We sabotaged this thing. As we built it, we sabotaged it. We bent it to our will where we could, right? But these are the stories that they don't tell, that they don't want told. We tell the stories among ourselves. We have our oral history, right?
Yes.
But so when we begin to talk about this, and I've been celebrating Juneteenth since when I was a baby, we had Juneteenth celebrations, right? But it was always around the concept of our resistance and not our submission, because we never submitted. to these people, right? It's like, 400 years, we've been at war with white supremacy since day one, So I'm a little salty because now suddenly, in the middle of this struggle we're in, they are going to appease us by giving us a holiday. I don't need another holiday, right? I celebrate. I don't need white folks to okay shit for me, and asking them we make our own realities, right? Power is the ability to define reality and make it act in a desired manner. That's what I learned when I was 16 years old, hanging around Fred Hampton and the Black Panther Party, right? That we're engaged in an ongoing struggle. I took that struggle, I left here and I went to Mozambique because I didn't want to go to Vietnam. I went to Tanzania, lived in Tanzania, and worked with liberation forces there, And it's a little bit, I'm happy that these young people are out here in the street, And for the climax of the last month, for us to be discussing whether we're going to have a holiday or not, I feel like it's a step backwards.
Okay, well, I want to say this.
I'm sorry. I'm just like,
Floyd, it's a step backwards. It's a step backwards for those who did not know that people were fighting for this holiday continuously. There's two stories here. There's one story of people just finding out that there was even legislation. There was even.
Will it stop Black people from getting killed? Right. That's all I want to know. Because the struggle right now is about stopping the police from killing Black people and stopping these people. Juneteenth comes in at a crucial moment in our history. We're about to change this thing, right? We're about to make these people actually stop killing us because they didn't expect so many white people to be in our corner, right?
Okay, so that you're making me skip around, but I had.
I'm sorry.
I was gonna get there, but you just went straight to it. But what I really kind of want to double back and come back to that because I did have a question that had addressed that.
So I get emotional. I'm from Mississippi. You got to remember.
I understand. And you know what's important? What is important is that we hear every voice and that that's one of the things about the Kwanzaa principles in terms of unity, collective worker responsibility, is knowing that there takes more than one kind of soldier to win a war. And if everyone's fighting the same fight, then we are not in position to help each other. So it's really important that people know where they need to be. We need our foot soldiers, we need our spies, we need all of it, right? But I wanted to ask as an artist, because many times artists are asked to compromise what their belief system is in order to become an artist, in order to become in film, TV, or whatever medium they're trying. So I wanted to know personally, at what point did you discover that or realize that you wanted to be an activist? And not defined by others, but defined by yourself. At what point did you personally said, you know what, I am an activist? And so I'm gonna start with
hanging around the people that I grew up around. The people that I grew up around, basically, Pan-Africanism was born in Chicago in the 1890s, right? And out of that birth of Pan-Africanism in Chicago in the 1890s, some of the first people to go to Ethiopia, right? There's always been a relationship between Chicago and Africa. The first people to go to Ethiopia to fight against the Italians were people out of Chicago. We had pilots who were being trained here. This pilot Robinson, the Brown Condor, he went and set up the Ethiopian Air Force. Right?
I'm asking more on.
Hold on, let me just get to it. Let me get to it. Because this is my base, right? This is where I come from. Right. These are the people that I grew up around. That history is part of who I learned from, right? We had a guy who was a lay historian here, right? I used to go to Dr. Margaret Burroughs' house for her salons. She was the founder of the DuSable Museum. The museum was in her house when it first started, Charles Wright used to come to her salons on Sunday afternoons, right? Mm-hmm. So these are all the people that I grew up around. The person who took me over to her house was a sculptor who went to school with her, So I was exposed to the arts. I was exposed to all of this coming up. Plus in Mississippi, you know, I come from a tradition of flute players, the Mississippi drum and fife people. So I learned to make flutes and things back then. You know, so these are all the things that, as I became educated, as I became aware of the world and looking at my place in it, you know, outside of being, so that's where it came from, right?
Okay, so one of the things I want to do is to make sure that everyone gets a opportunity. So because we're in a different kind of panel, I may just call your name and ask you the same question. So I'm gonna say, Takeema, at what point did you feel that I want to be an activist, and not defined by somebody else, but your own feeling like, okay, I'm standing up for a particular thing? When can you, what happened that made you want to pursue art and use it in a valuable way?
No, for me, I believe that my being an activist is just as natural as me being a performing artist. I think, you know, my gifts and my talents and coming up, listening to the elders and understanding the world that I grew up in, I think there is no separation for me between the two. I feel I come from generations that I feel that have definitely pushed and catapulted me to the knowledge that I have right now. But I also feel like, you know, there's a couple generations that may have failed in, you know, just that seek for knowledge. I feel like I'm learning things now that I wish I had known a long time ago. And I guess I can say that for, you know, many people. For me, I don't find a separation, because I'm always that person. Even in school, I'm the one, just because of my personality, I'm going to fight for the person that can't fight for themselves anyway. That's just who I am, and it's my makeup. So my artistry has given me the opportunity to kind of expand that and maybe make that contagious, make, you know, the fact that we are so underrepresented. How could I be a Black actress and not be an activist? I don't see a difference for me, Ina. There's no separation there almost. I haven't had the luxury to separate the two, to be honest.
Okay, and how about you, AU?
You know, I think, you know, this might be crazy, but I think it was when I was 4 years old and my dad left me. I knew something was wrong with that. I knew to make up the family, you know, as I got older. You know, I was 17 years old in Texas, and at 17, when I was 17, the president was Gerald Ford. That's how long ago it was, right? And so he was already trying to get United States Army. He's already sent some of the Marine out to the shores of Africa, because they was having some problem with Africa. So I'm in Texas, you know, I'm a New York boy from Texas. And I said, yo, I got to get the hell out of Texas and go back to New York. So at 17, I began to know totally my history, the foundation of who I was, and knew that if there was going to be a war, I definitely wasn't going to fight nobody from Africa, you know. And so it was interesting. And so since then, you know, we started the organization, Chemistry, Community Help, and Educate Men Institute Directions, Redirect Youth, and then we take Brothers Against Killing Each Other, and then Life Campaign. And so we've been doing this thing as I've been acting, and as I've been writing. We've been doing this thing, you know, for a long time. The thing that we need to find, though, like you said, there are lanes and there are compartments and departments that if we're going to fight a war, we got to find ourselves in the right place. And if we're going to do it with art, it's an interesting thing. We have to do it with the help. And, you know, one of the things that you spoke about before was what is it reference to the 7 principles. It's interesting when you look at it from Umoja Diamani. All the 7 principles, the only way you can make a film or do a play is by instituting those principles. The first one is unity. You know, then you start going through that. You need self-determination. You know, and so if you go through the 7 principles, you would understand that. But activism comes in, like Che Guevara said, the activism is in the people. You know, and when you say the youth, what does that mean? When the youth have the anxiety, they are fearless, but the youth have to listen to the old, because they're the ones that rise into the street strategically make it possible for you to win the war. We're winning a lot of battles, but we're not winning any wars.
So that's really important because activism is not just being active, it's following it all the way through, a plan all the way through, using the principle of unity, coming together, determining how we're going to define this activism, how we're going to collective work and responsibility, who's going to be in the front line, who's going to be in the back line, and who's going to be in the office, you know, who's going to be the political front and who's going to be the street soldiers. Yeah, so using these principles are really important. I'm going to ask Herb to answer that same question. And the question was, when did you know that you wanted to embrace activism, or, you know, what happened to make you want to be conscious about art, about your community and all of that? Yes.
I mean, I'm a little younger than a lot of the panel, but even growing up in, you know, I grew up in Newark, and you know, in the heart of, you know, basically with the people that I grew up with, who were, you know, who were in the riots and who were in the, you know, in the revolt and in the, you know, in the struggle where the tanks were rolling through the streets. So what they kind of showed me was all of the people who were, you know, all the people who were active with that. And the arts were always just part of community movement. I agree with Takeema. There was no real separation. So if you're doing it, that's what you're doing it for, and that's how you're doing it. You know, it's a, you know, whatever art you're participating in is a part of community development, or community upliftment. You know, going to the Newark Museum and seeing all the exhibits that they had there, and you know, bringing in people like Nikki Giovanni. That was the first time I saw Nikki Giovanni read, and was at the Newark Museum, and understanding her part in the movements and the renaissances. So so that kind of carried my, you know, was the start of everything. And then you know, when I was in film school and developing my repertoire, um you know, it was always just a part of the storytelling. So I was like, this is, you know, it's just griot culture. This is Black storytelling. We want to keep our storytelling intact. We want to keep our stories intact. We want to, you know, so when I was shooting people, I was like, okay, you know, I will keep the archive. I will let people, you know, I will let people know that this is who we were and this is who we are. So, so I, you know, just being able to get to work with a lot of people, and seeing, you know, the one event that really shot me off was that was I went to Sonia Sanchez was reading at what, you know, that one of the shop that used to be was Nubian Heritage, under that used to be under the National Black Theater.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that when they had that shop, they had Sonia Sanchez come to speak, and not a notebook, not a pen and paper, not a reporter, not a nothing. And I was like, this is ridiculous that, you know, this is the foremother of the Harlem Renaissance, and no, you know, and one of the last few around. Amir Barker hadn't died yet, but you know, they, you know, she was one of the forerunners, and nobody was recording anything.
No one was recording. Oh, wow.
And I was like, you know, things can't go undocumented. You know, like the, you know, like the quote says, if you're, you know, if somebody's killing you and you're silent, they'll, you know, they'll blame you and say you liked it.
Right. Okay, thank you. And you know what, Sonia Sanchez, I literally think that she was a catalyst for many of artists, because for me personally, I got to read in front of her and she made a statement, and from there I was like, I guess I'm going to do something with this writing I'm doing. I better do something. Maybe I'll be a playwright, because she definitely inspired me. William Robinson, same question, but I'm going to give you all a heads up. The next question is going to be, what principle do you think we need to, that resonates with you, and what principle do you think as a community that we're lacking, that we could use more, and how can we use it? So Billy, I'm going to William, I'm going to let you answer this question since
Okay.
everyone else asked, and then we'll go into the second question.
Okay, let me just say this, because of time constriction, we are at 4:37, so
Okay.
if you can minimize it, because
yes.
we have to show a film, and we have 2 other presentations that you need to make as well.
Sure. I wanted to say that one of the films doesn't necessarily have to be shown, but we'll talk about that. I'll probably just show First Fruit. Okay. So, okay, William, because I know we're running.
So can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Good, good. So I would imagine the Kujichagulia is cooperative economics, am I correct?
Kujichagulia is self-determination.
What is cooperative economics?
Cooperative economics is, and I always mess it up with a G, it's Ujuma, yeah, cooperative economics.
So I would say, to answer your question, Ujima, which is cooperative economics, and Kujichagulia, which is, I think, the
self-determination.
Self-determination is so important. It's the pathway to cooperative economics, I believe. They go hand in hand. And I guess your question was, how did I first determine, or how was I first influenced with that particular principle? It has to do with my personal history as a Black man who was educated in the elite private school system, in the elite university college, white elite private school system, white elite university system, Riverdale Country School, Tufts University, and kind of seeing excellence through the eyes of, you could say, our captors, or you could say through other eyes. And I understood that this did not necessarily transpose to the experience of the captive, as the other gentleman had said. And still, I moved through that, and but it was, I would say, in the next years that through my dad, my mom, my dad being one of the first Black NFL players drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers, my mom being one of the archivists for 20 years with the Schaumburg the Schaumburg Library in Harlem, the Research Cultural Center, that I began to develop a strong identity for what was not necessarily an experience that I was ironically raised to be in. And so it created this journey about their challenges and the things, the fortitudes that I saw from always being in the Schaumburg, always being around football players in the NFL as a young kid, that I knew that somehow we had to connect dots in a much better way that would stimulate or would create, there was a lot of turbulence in our community, and I think that we needed to find our way. As I moved on and went the segue to the pathway of me becoming a businessman, an international businessman, and I'll quote a word which may make sense. I call it Blacktivism, through business, where I am today and where I've been for the last 20 years, as you know, starting going to Wall Street, doing well for a couple of years, and then launching a telecommunications company that was international, acquiring a factory, moving it to Panama, doing business with Sanyo and General Electric, and moving the company now to where we are today, where the consciousness has to be how, as a company that has fed families over the years, how do we integrate our own people into this experience? How do we abbreviate? Because this took me a long time to find myself. This was a journey that almost wasn't traveled. It almost didn't go this way. But I want this as a Black activist, as a person who understands our power economically, to see, particularly through a movement that we're talking about now, this magical sort of Black spring, if you will. How do we come out of this and do our part? How do we endow our children, my 2 Black boys? How do we, all of our children, our grandchildren, how do we endow them with the rite of passage to understand that you can do many other things? You could do anything you want to do. There's nothing that limits you. But how do you understand that what's inherent in your soul is the ability to self-determination, cooperative economics, control your destiny by controlling your dollar, making your dollar, creating a prism in a business structure, being an entrepreneur, and also being able, through that structure, to be able to manage the fortune of others, particularly our people. So I would say this in the last part, the connections to me and my fortune, because it could have easily gone another way. People talk about the challenges in their lives. For me, I could have been gobbled up in the streets. I could have rejected the way that I was brought up. I see a lot of missteps, a lot of mistakes that I made. But as I said, my dad, my mom's experience, the sacrifices they made for me. I also was very blessed, and this is the last thing I'll say, to be involved. With just the best that there are of us. Before I went to Wall Street, I was a record executive, and my greatest affiliation, I would say, was with Def Jam Records when it started, when Russell Simmons was probably the most successful record label, aside from Motown, in the history of this planet. I was there and I worked with them. I became vice president of Russell's management company, Rush Artist Management, and I managed people.
Not to cut you, but I have to, because we are starting to fall behind, and I really want to get into the principles. So I did thank you very much, and I get what you're saying in terms of economic empowerment, and actually I believe that self-determination would be defining what we want, defining who we are.
I just want to say this one last thing, because we have to move on. But just Russell Simmons, Bill Cosby, these people who I worked very closely with, they changed my mind and my scope. And these are 2 men that influenced the world. But my personal interaction with them is what allows me to say and speak in the way I'm speaking today. So thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Yeah,
thank you very, very much. But again, because of time, we're supposed to at least kind of speed it up a little bit.
I want everyone to give a last statement about whatever you want to say about how we use the Kwanzaa principles. Everyone will have 1 minute, 2 minutes, because we do have to wrap it up, because I think we're running past our time, and we do have, right now we have a film to show, and the performance is out. Yeah. So, okay, so let's everyone, Takeema, you can say something, and then we'll follow it up by AU, Herb, Floyd, and then we'll close out from there. I'll make a statement and we'll close out our segment. Yes.
Thank you. In a timely manner. You know, I was just going to bring up Nia, purpose. I believe that, you know, a lot of my focus is on the younger generation. I would like to create some kind of preventive programs for the youth, but I think that purpose is for me personally where I am, but it's also lacking. I think that the generations are so culturally deprived, like they just really don't know. And I think that without the knowledge and the education, psychoeducation, that their purpose is not going to be clear. Till you have a clear purpose moving forward, it's going to be really rocky road.
Okay. Hey, you on mute. Unmute yourself.
Sorry, I usually do better than that. Okay, so the last 24 days, 126 Black people were shot in New York City by one another, right? And so, going to Tameika's point, yes, we do have to educate our young people. We really have to educate our young people because they're still killing each other in the streets. So the way I think that applying, you know, Kwanzaa, that's really applying, you know, rational rhetoric rupture, where, you know, we have to save our young people because they're the one that's going to take this mantle and do something different than what we did with it. To get the smartest, to get the most intelligent and the most fearless generation to be going at one another, we have to do an extreme intervening. I think it was Floyd who said early, and Floyd Webb laughed early, and I agree 100%. We going through all this shit, and they talking about a holiday, you know, and so we can't get caught up in the smoke screens. We really have to find out. I think it's beautiful that we have to network that sort of this. I've been on Zooms 1,000 times. I was talking to the mayor on Saturday, and he tried to ask me a trick question. And we can stop settling for the trick questions. Go directly to them, what we need, what we want. Don't get caught up in the smoke screen. Be careful with the pandemic. It's still very ever busy. And those things that we react to are not things that we put out to react to. Those things are put out for us to react to. And that's it, and we'll talk later.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next person, Herb, and then Floyd, right? Yes.
Yeah, so just quickly and directly, you know, I agree. Definitely agree with Billy. But Kuji Chakalia is definitely has been the watchword for me, just because, yeah, you are determining for yourself who you are. And I was just talking to my wife about how I love Juneteenth and what we've made it, but it's you know, but I'm always kind of divided, because why are all the holidays that we celebrate always connected to other people? So you know, connected to the legislation that let us out, and we use it for how we use it, but it's connected to them. So I'm like, you know, we have had very little time and very little resource to connect to, well, I mean, not very little, I mean, yeah, but we need to focus on who we are as ourselves, and not, and that's why this moment is great. It's who we are as ourselves, not necessarily connected to oppression or release from oppression from these other people. So, I think, it's there needs to be like definitely some segregation and isolation going on about who we are ourselves.
Okay, and Floyd, you close us out.
Okay. Well, Kumba, creativity, the radical Black imagination, Ashe, the ability to make things happen, the connection to Ishu Legba, right? The crossroads, the ability to speak to all people. Without our creativity, without a radical Black imagination, we'll be spinning our wheels another 50 years. I don't want my grandkids going through this, right? So that's what this is. From our imagination, Afrofuturism is what, it isn't something that we imagine, it's something that we live.
Wonderful. And, you know, everyone mentioned a number of principles, but I do want to go into one before we go, is Imani, because I believe that we have to believe that we can create another reality. And until we have faith, and without doubt, without any kind of doubt, without any kind of negative intervention, and have a belief system and really believe it to be true, all the other principles can fall flat, because we have to start with, because I hear a lot, it can't happen, this won't happen, this won't. You are affirming that. You are praying when you're saying that, and to have that belief. And I think every one of you, all, for such an engaging conversation. I wish we had more time to go on and on, because it was a lot of, I had at least 6 questions, but I got 2 in, and I thank you very much. But we have other parts of our event. So I'm gonna let you choose, Debra, if we have time for both films or just one, or whatever is next. The performance, that's not gonna happen, but you can go on to the next thing.
Okay.
That you want to.
Okay, I also wanted to say, I want to thank everyone for breaking down those principles of Kwanzaa, which we all need to adopt each and every day of our lives. And I also wanted to kind of reiterate on what Mr. Webber mentioned. Doc Myers was from Mississippi. Doc Myers talked about the same things that you talked about, but also there are so many of us that have been sitting back and falling back and waiting for someone to give them something, instead of not even just knocking on the door, but walking through the door. Okay, because I come from a people that we're gonna walk through that door, or we're gonna sit at that table. We don't have to be introduced to sit at that table. We could sit at that table and have an agenda that is outright and ready. And there's so many of us that when we do go to the continent, we also have to realize a lot of the people from the continent, they were a part of our slave trade. They were a part of being the passive people, and they still are enslaving their own people. And I have family members over there in about 3 African countries as we speak. So I know both sides and I understand both sides, but we do live in a democracy. So anything that we want, whether who we are, white, black, orange, or green, we do have to go through a democracy. And this is the system, and this is the system that we live in, or otherwise then become sovereign. You know, there are some choices that we can make. But again, you're absolutely right, because Doc Myers, he was one of them strong Mississippians. He knew he was already free. He knew he was not a slave. He knew he was here for labor. And he said the same things you said. So I applaud you for that. And we need to have these conversations in order so that we can understand some of the differences and learn from some of the differences, and come back to the table to embrace and hold hands with each other, because we need everybody at the table, and we need we need everybody.
Absolutely. And I mean, we literally, that's one thing. You know, you ever read the book, The 4 Agreements? I think us as a community, we should come up with like an agreement, because we're not going to all think the same way. We're not going to have the same religion or the same background, but we need to come up with some agreements so that we can move forward, you know? So this has been a beautiful conversation. Debra, I think the next thing on the, you know, if we have to skip things, let me know. But I know we have the Emancipation Proclamation, or we're gonna go straight to the video on the films.
We can go to where's the other part? Yeah. Sure. Okay. Yeah. Bear with me. Okay.
Y'all excuse me for 1 minute. I have to sneeze. Let me go.
So bear with me. I'm just gonna run this short commercial while I line up the rest.
you know, as I was listening to you all, and I love to talk while she's lining up things, Floyd, you said so many valuable things. I definitely want Herb and Billy. William is the person who I work with in terms of helping me to raise money and capital for projects. Okay, we have our commercial. It's ready.
This is Democratic candidate William Russell Moore. I grew up in a single-parent household on welfare. To escape crime, I was moved to the Bronx. This is where the horrors of urban neglect ignited my passion, so I decided to get a degree in political science. In District 85, I will serve our diverse population. Out of many, we are one Bronx. Vote for me, William Russell Moore, as your next state assemblyman on June 23rd. Call 917-600-4001. Thanks.
Okay. All right, take that. You can continue to talk, Ina.
Okay, so, you know, I would like for, you know, eventually for us to all kind of get together, because we're all kind of aligned in that whole thing that you were talking about, being futuristic and being able to leave a legacy for our children. And I, you know, I just feel like one of the things I'm really concerned about is this whole ageism thing, also in terms of trying to shut people up from telling their stories after they've lived 60, 70, 80, 90 years. Our children need our support and our stories in order to evolve. And for us to be disconnected, and as you know, is problematic.
Okay.
All right, be ready.
Be ready.
Okay, go ahead.
Order deadline coming up at the end of this month. Sure could use your help to make sure we hit our goal.
Yes,
Grassroots supporters like you chipping in 5 or
yes, I can skip it.
That's what I thought we were download because YouTube's so commercial.
Yeah,
On the first day of January, in the year of our Lord, 1863.
All persons held as slaves within any state or designated part of the state, the people whereof shall then be in rebellion against the United States, shall be then thenceforward and forever free.
And the executive government of the United States, including the military and naval authority thereof, will recognize and maintain the freedom of such persons,
And will do no act or acts to oppress such persons or any of them in any efforts they may make for their actual freedom.
Now, therefore, I, Abraham Lincoln, President of the United States,
by virtue of the power in me vested as Commander-in-Chief of the Army and Navy of the United States,
hereby enjoin upon the people so declared to be free to abstain from all violence, unless in necessary self-defense.
and I recommend to them that in all cases when allowed, they labor faithfully for reasonable wages.
And I further declare and make known that such persons of suitable condition will be received into the armed service of the United States to garrison forts, positions, stations, and other places, and to man vessels of all sorts in said service.
And upon this act, sincerely believe to be an act of justice,
warranted by the Constitution upon military necessity.
I invoke the considerate judgment of mankind
and the gracious favor of Almighty God.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you like this video, check out these other videos from USA Today to stay up to date with all the latest news.
Ones that see Guinean people, Senegalese, Mali.
Yeah. Right, everybody working together, eating.
They dropped me over there. I don't know nobody. I don't get English, bro.
Word?
But my people take
Really
me
hard.
to my people take me to help me out. The gold, the tall one, Tijani used to work
All
with us.
of them, yo. That was love, yo.
It was
Yo,
love.
that was love. And you see Mama
Hi,
Do, the one that
Debra.
got the groceries? Once, as a matter
Hi.
of fact, it wasn't even Mama Do. It was Alpha and Bath. Once they
How are you?
like as an African American, all the Africans started showing me love.
That's all we are.
All the
Are you
Africans,
Debra? Because
no matter what, yeah.
we know how much it takes for you to answer.
How
are you,
Debra? Right.
Bring you to the front.
Yeah,
So
to know.
when we see one person, I said,
Deborah, nothing is.
he's about his money.
One second.
Yo, King, no, no bullshit. They took me. They said, yo,
Deborah,
come on, we taking you. You're gonna get your shahada. Yo, I said, okay, cause cause we together, we hanging, but they leaving me, and they going to pray, and I'm like, yo, they said, don't worry, we gonna take you. Yo, they took me to the mosque 116. No.
Thank you.
Talk.
Okay, so now we're gonna set up the other one. I don't know, some people really like to say my name, okay?
Go to that link.
Boy.
Where's that link?
Oh, right
here. Yeah, do it. Do it the link.
Okay. Okay, 2 days in Harlem. 2 days in Harlem. This is what we're going to see.
Show commercial.
Hopefully no commercials and no interruptions.
In 2013, New York City, with a population of 8 million, had more people killed by guns than the entire country of Argentina and its 41 million citizens.
What the fuck is that? Oh, the screen's blowing up.
What did you do?
Ain't that it?
What did you do?
Jesus Christ. Talk.
Just let it go. Yeah.
To help combat the epidemic, the NYPD employs a tactic called preventive street patrol, better known as stop and frisk. Is this policy the solution or part of the problem? This is 2 Days in Harlem.
Let's go. I want you over here. Slowly. They got nothing to say.
This is about the cops. You think these marginally educated, undertrained foot soldiers are a problem? I mean, that this ain't about police, period. What you do as quick as you step on the bus.
Well, that includes all of my students.
They should be stop and frisk. Stop and frisk does not mean stop and shoot. So we're looking for the safety
Standing there.
of our children.
Look, if I could, I'd frisk my damn self.
The close X. Yeah. I'll talk.
Okay, that was 2 days in Harlem, and now we are going to see the long version of the Father's Day. Hopefully, no commercials.
For over 1,000 generations, the Jedi are the guardians of peace and justice.
In New Orleans, seafood is as much a part of life as changing time. I was raised between shrimp etouffee and fried catfish. Learned to walk on crab legs and was baptized in a pot of crawfish before I even knew what one was. Still, I was always disgusted by the oysters. But see, my dad loved it. He said that the zinc in the meat was good for your hair, and if I had seen the hairlines on the men on my mama's side of the family, I better start eating them. I would later learn that an oyster's pearls were formed from foreign parasites that had breached the boundaries of its shell. To protect itself from the danger, the oyster cocoons the substance in coats of calcium until the very thing that was trying to destroy it becomes the thing that makes it most beautiful. Mother Nature has a funny way of teaching us.
See, last summer while visiting home, I went to check on my dad to see if he knew the score of the game, but when I opened the door to his bedroom, I saw him laying on the ground like a broken promise, genuflecting in front of a prayer, and my father held his stomach as if he had been stabbed by the very person entrusted to protect him from betrayal. It's never been so silent. There is no treason like that of your own body turning against itself. A Benedict Arnold with a bayonet in your bloodstream. A Judas kissing your kidneys goodbye for 30 pieces of silver. It's chronic kidney disease. It's deep sea diving with no oxygen. Drowning underwater, waiting for a transplant to bring you back to the surface. But my father is an oyster. Where the shell hardened by growing up in a place where expectations never rose above low tide, has a coral reef of a mother with the echo of an unborn ocean on her breast, taught him that when the waves of this world try to wear you down, it's okay. We are all just a little bit weathered, and she has taught me that if an oyster can turn a parasite into a pearl, then it is no surprise that my father can turn the kidney into calligraphy. See, when I was 14 and he was first diagnosed, he wrote me a 15-page letter saying that if anything happened, I had to be ready to become the man of the house. He wrote Clint. Though it hasn't always looked like it, I've always put God first. Now you complain because Clinton Ward Smith III makes it sound like you're the heir to a British monarchy, but never doubt you are a king. Understand that I gave you your grandfather's name because the most sacred things I have ever known come in Trinity's pledge. Love your mother like a stained glass window in a war zone. She can be both shield and sword, both weapon and protection. Treat every woman like you would want a man to treat your sister. This ocean already has enough sharks. Please don't be another shark. My father is an oyster, clasped down tightly on the things he loves the most, his family and his God. He has a calcium-encrusted heart cradled tightly in his chest. There are scars born from waves that he tried to erode him of this world. My father is an oyster. And I pray that when he is pulled from this ocean, that those who live above the surface will see the brilliance of his pearl.
Thank you. And the next one and the last one, again, is about fathers. And then we can have comments and reflections on the whole program. They can see that.
So I'm hanging out with my friend and a bunch of his coworkers. Him and I are talking, and I mentioned Black fatherhood. One of his white coworkers says, "That's kind of an oxymoron, right?" You know, Black fatherhood. Get it? Anybody who knows me knows that my hands are two pots that are always full of water, and my temper is a gasoline stove that can only be turned off by a few people. You see, when he started, when he said it, I clenched my fist so hard, I thought I saw steam leaking through my fingers. I wanted to swing. I wanted to turn this man's face into a full course meal, but instead I said, "Zoe." I said to myself, "Zoe," and my daughter's name became two ice cubes in my hands. It was the only thing that stopped them from boiling over. I said to him, "My little girl saved you today."
Okay. So, stop sharing. Okay. So I'm going to unmute everyone.
I just want to make one correction just because it's important. That film, 2 Days in Harlem, that was its trailer. That was not its film, because I just don't want to misrepresent his work. Omar Salgado is the executive producer. We were having problems getting his film to be shown, but that was a trailer, and I encourage you to find his film on other outlets where you can see the whole thing, just to state that.
So I would like to say that everyone, one by one, to make comments, to make reflections, so that everyone will have a chance to speak. And also, if you want to speak on any of the principles of Kwanzaa and tie it into Juneteenth, that will also be great. So I'm unmuting everyone, so anyone can jump in. You want to start off, Crystal? You got to unmute yourself, Crystal, so that we can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hi, everyone. I think what I've been struggling most with, and it may be a little off topic, is just really having meaningful and impactful conversation with children. I work with kids. I work for the Department of Education, and I also run a nonprofit for children. And it's just something, I have two young sons that are 9 and 10. And I think what I'm struggling with is helping them wrap their mind around what's going on in the world around them right now. They're confused, and it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to adults, so I know it doesn't make sense to children. You know, we try to, I'm on the board of, I'm an ally to the LGBT community, and my godmother, she has been running the Kwanzaa, LGBTQ Kwanzaa festival every year for the last 40 years. And so we try to, I do make every effort to tie in the 7 principles of Kwanzaa into our daily life, but it's been challenging and difficult at these times. I feel like as someone who's an administrator in school, working with my families, working with my own children, but also peeling back the different layers. In March, we went into this thinking, oh my gosh, we need to keep our families healthy and safe. And then there's just these constant layers that are added. It's like this peeling this onion, and I think I'm rambling, but it's been a struggle, and I'm working hard with other groups and organizations and trying to figure out where do we go from here. That's like, I'm a person of action, so I'm just like, well, what's next? What are our next steps? How are we? I heard someone say that they don't want their grandchildren going through this. I don't want my boys going through this. I don't want my grandchildren. I don't want any of our kids to have to deal with this. But what are we gonna do as a people so that, what are our next steps?
If Ina, you would like to make a comment on that?
Okay, first of all, you're doing the right thing, because you are finding groups to talk to that you can be involved in. And I would suggest that you sit down with yourself and see what part you play in your own revolution, and see what are your next steps. So one, it sounds like you have a community of people that you can work with. Some people need to do things politically. Some people need to just bring children together and make them feel secure, teach them their history so that they can use that history to strengthen themselves. But I would sit back, I would meditate and think about start with yourself and your family. It sounds like you're doing a wonderful job, Crystal, from the things you have just said, and then build your way out. But don't ever be afraid on the calling, because you may be called at a moment to do something you never thought you would do to help us in our struggle. I don't think it's ever going to be a time where we should not be conscious. Life is highs and lows. That's life, right? But to have that kind of spiritual armor and awareness would be helpful.
Excellent, 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 excellent. So I'm going to move on and go to Evelyn. Hi, Evelyn. You unmute?
Hi. Yes, let me unmute me. Over here.
Introduce yourself.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, you can.
Okay. Hi, I'm Evelyn Collier. Met Debra, was 5 years ago or more? Debra?
Yes.
About 5 years ago, yeah. Through searching to get information on her grandmother who passed not that long ago. But anyway, I'm part of the community. I'm chair of the Landmark Committee for Community Board 3. So I was in search of information on a project or a house, the order of tents, so that we could help in trying to preserve that building. But anyway, but that's how I get them. So I work with the community. I do a lot of things that involves service, helping. We do Bed-Stuy Live, where we bring resources together. I myself personally do, I get out information to people. I find that an uninformed community is a dead community, and you're spiritually dead if you're not keeping up with what's going on around you. And I found that so many people were not reading and not paying attention to things that are happening. So pandemic took upon us, and the majority of the people dying were us. And it showed the inadequacies that are in our lives.
Yes.
And then George Floyd happened, and it opened that other pathway that we have been fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting to get to. And his passing opened so many doors that we have to jump on everything that we need to get, everything we need to get. We need to go after it and get it done while this momentum is going. But anyway, I'm a person, I love that you invited me to this. I wasn't on the panel, but to sit and observe. And these are some of the things that we're doing over here, not in terms of the depth that you did it, but we do Juneteenth. I support a friend of mine who's been doing it for many years. And so, Kwanzaa, I do participate in my community. And I think all those principles, yes, we have to incorporate them in our everyday life. And I think like other cultures do, it becomes part of a ritual for them and not just for a celebrated time. But anyway, so thank you for allowing me to be a part of this day, and all the great people that I just got introduced to that are here today. So thank you for letting me know who you are.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So, anyone else, any comments?
Yeah, you know, my 85-year-old dad died of COVID May 2nd, right? And I've had I've had a lot of reflections on that. You know, I spent the last 2 years caring for him. He was Vietnam vet, wounded Vietnam, 3 strokes, and got the lung cancer 50 years after he left Vietnam. So there was a lot of history we had to catch up on, right? And it's really, and I think it's part of that, because like listening to him talk, because my dad he was a patriot in a sense, but he was a patriot because me going to Africa was earned by him going to Vietnam. I didn't go to the Vietnam War, and they kind of didn't come after me because my man, my old man had done his shit. He had served the imperialist missions of them for 2 different wars, and I think about that, and I think about my grandkids, and I think about Father's Day is coming up, and like where we are, and I feel like we're in a better place than we've ever been.
Yeah.
I feel like we're actually more unified in a decentralized manner.
Right.
We're fighting. We have a resistance that's decentralized and it's hard to shut down a decentralized, united effort, because we have a basic mission. That first basic mission is to stop these from killing Black people, and men, women, and children. There was a day when you said, "Oh, they're killing men, women, and children," and that wouldn't make sense. But it's true. We've witnessed this in the past 8 years. We've witnessed them killing men, women, and children. Multiple men, women, and children. And it's like, how can that be? How can that exist? The one key word that's missing from a lot of this that we need to really get a hold of is we're fighting fascism, not only white supremacy, we're fighting fascism, right? We have to be very clear on that. I don't hate Trump because he's Trump. I hate him because he's a fascist. He's an authoritarian capitalist fascist. And we have to be really clear.
That's right.
That we're in a radical struggle. We're in a struggle for radical change. We don't want no reforms, you know, and we can't stop. You know, like I'm happy to be back here again to do what I can. Because I started at 12 with Martin Luther King in Gage Park, watching him get hit in the head with a brick, you know? And that's where I started, and that was when I ended that. Matter of fact, that's when King gave up nonviolence, really, if anybody wants to talk about it. Yeah, so that's all I gotta say.
Thank you so much. And I'm glad you did. I'm so glad we got through this whole thing without saying that man's name until the end, which is great, because there's always a cure in the curse. There's always medicine in the poison. And because he was at that level of being so poisonous, we are finding a cure in ourselves, in each other. So it is what looks bad sometimes, what looks like, oh my God, maybe, like you said, this might be a good time for us. We got our ancestors supporting us. I relate to you. My father also died of COVID-19 in April. So I'm gonna be calling you. We're gonna have another conversation, okay? So does anybody else wanna speak before Debra and I kind of do the closing? UA?
Okay, before we close, I just want to say one thing, my condolences to Brother Floyd, and Ina, again, condolences, you know, and to all those that may have lost someone during this pandemic. You know, I'm not gonna lie, I've been trying to be extra careful because this thing is so vicious, you know, and it's becoming so quickly. It's many of my close friends and my family members, you know, my brother, Reverend Hogan, was hospitalized for a month and a half on a ventilator. You know, thank God that he is home, you know, and a lot of that has happened during that time. Also, weeks ago, my son, as Ina knows, was shot in his head and out in Suffolk County. You know, so when Crystal says, where do we go from here? There's an organization by a sister named Carolyn Dixon in Southeast Queens. Her organization name is Where Do We Go From Here? So she lost her son at a parking space. He was killed 5 years ago for a parking space. And she happened to be there. The only way they got him, because when the guy shot her, he ran, when he shot his son, he ran, he dropped his gun, and she shot him in the leg, and that's why he fell and got. It's interesting stuff that is happening to us as a people. I'm gonna say this, I have 14 children. I just had my 22nd grandchild on December 10th. One of the things that I've done as a father, you know, is structural, and not just only the Kwanzaa principles, but also cultural principles of how we develop young people. How do we develop young men, and how do we develop young sisters? And also, there's so many things that we have adapted to say was a part of our life, and a lot of the language and music and culture and these things, we might want to separate it, and people will be mad. But we have to look at what we call our women. We have to look at what we call ourselves. We have to begin with being naturally responsible for some of the things, not what white people shooting us. That is a totally separate conversation, you know, totally separate conversation. We definitely have to address that, but we have to address that as a whole unit. We cannot address that in part. You cannot allow these elected officials going. The mayor was asking, will elected officials help? And I said this, and this I'm saying, and this is my last, I'm gonna say, Malcolm had said something very interesting about house slave and the field slaves. He called it a house Negro and a field Negro. The reason why we are so lost in our emancipation is because we allow people to represent us to hold us back to dealing with the real struggle. We are strong enough, like the sister Debra said. Their generation went and said, if I can't sit at the table, I'm gonna knock this damn table down. If I can't go in this door, I'm gonna knock the door down. There's some of us that have to be these different levels. There's gonna be a million marches. Some can march. I support them. But then there's gonna have to be organizers and people that are gonna set up systems that when we come out of marching, to do other stuff. Thank you.
I just want to make one comment about this whole scenario. I am so very much pleased and moved I've seen a lot of these conversations happen, but I also seen a lot of conversations from people who are not necessarily struggling with what's really going on. I've seen a lot of celebrities, I've seen a lot of Oprahs, and they're having these conversations. However, they stop short of talking about an economic boycott or any of these things, because that's how their livelihood is dependent upon the system. And here we're able to be free and to speak and to care and to use the principles and have this conversation. So I'm very, very pleased, very pleased. That's my last word.
Okay, Royce, do you have anything to say, my brother Royce? Are you on, Royce? Unmute. Royce.
How about Raymond too? There's a Raymond.
I'm the engineer.
So you want to say anything? No, say something, Raymond.
Yes, how y'all doing? That's why they were echoed.
Oh, because he's getting right next to me.
Yes, I'm doing the technical work with my sis here.
Thank you so much.
I'm an assistant as well on the background. I'm enjoying this whole history lesson as well. Juneteenth came acknowledged to me about 4 years ago when I visited Caribbean Island. I noticed they had Emancipation Day. So I'm like asking myself, why in the mainland, I don't really hear much about this celebration? And I'm like, you expect that in the United States, since we're supposed to be, as what they call themselves, a super powerful nation, but yet they are not acknowledging it years ago the way they should. So learning more about this history as well is very enlightening as well, where I share it to other people as well, even my co-workers, but most of them didn't even know what it was. So I'm sharing that knowledge to them as well, so they can also be up to speed. And my job did shut down early to celebrate it as well. Thank you, Liz. Yes.
Thank you.
So tell Voices.
I'm here.
Oh,
Oh, wait,
Voice.
she hear that.
I'm here.
I want you to make some comments, and I want you to talk about your event tonight.
Oh, so I want to thank you all for doing this platform. This is very informative to me. Again, like, believe it or not, I'm still learning a lot about my Black culture, and as I learn, it's helping me what I do in my craft in terms of music. And so, for example, tonight I'm having an event, and my brother encouraged me to focus mostly on what's happening in terms of Juneteenth. And so the event be based on Juneteenth and also Black Music Month. And so listening to you guys on this platform is helping me to be able to focus on my music on a positive perspective in terms of music that's helping the Black community. For example, we have Jesse Jackson once upon a time running for president, and it was a rap song for that too as well. So there was always a message in the music. I listened to the brother Sham, his experience with the with Def Jam and stuff like that. And so again, one of the songs too will come to play tonight is "Do the Right Thing" when that was put out. So other than that, that platform just tonight will be based on maybe an hour or a half hour in terms of the culture of music, and a remix on what is Juneteenth, how it came about, and where we are today with it. Okay, and other than that, then it'll be just dancing, having a good time, and so that's pretty much it. Thank you.
I'm gonna try to come. I'm gonna try to stay up. Last night I could not, and I'm gonna do some dancing because we also need to, dance. That's our culture.
Yes.
And so that's a great.
Post the URL on the chat room as well.
Oh, okay, cool. Sure enough.
Thank you.
Sister, thank you for your service. Thank you all for your service, and thank you for enlightening me and keep me educated and knowledge so I can pass the information on. Thank you.
Thank you. So anyone else or any other reflections, Ina, that you want to say about the Kwanzaa?
Well, I just want to say thank everyone for being here. Kwanzaa Film Festival will be doing some online events. Of course, based on COVID-19, our festival in December will probably be online. But prior to that, we still plan to do some programs. I want to do music and mental health before this month is out, because we should examine our music and we next family, how it relates to our mental health. And, you know, we're going to be doing other events. If you know filmmakers and whoever you know that's in this business, just give them my email, kwanzaafilmfestival@gmail.com. And like I said, I just think that this was a really positive event, and I can't thank you all enough for participating, and Debra for having us. And again, collaborating with another group is the way to go as we move forward. I really am very grateful.
I know if you can share some information, because I know there's a few people from the work I do who benefit by some of the stuff that I can get them with. So if you could share some emails, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I'll put it in the chat.
You can definitely share my email. You know, Life Camp. I know Crystal would be well getting into meeting Erica or somebody. You know,
I just gotta say this. The work that UA does is the work that our police officers cannot even do. He has brought young men who may have murdered someone, and they would admit, I murdered this one, I'm turning myself in. They go to UA. UA has really transformed a community. So I want to give him a shout out and a big up. But keep going. And all of y'all have done wonderful things. But it's like, how do you get people to say, I did this, I'm gonna do this and change and transform and turn myself in because I killed somebody? That is phenomenal.
Yeah, we on the table talk. We just did Jada Pinkett table talk just aired on June 10th. And one of the brothers who was that particular brother that turned himself in, he's actually been interviewed by Jada and Laura London, you know, while we did the table talk. So it's an interesting thing. First thing I tell people when they say they want to turn themselves in, I say, I want you to know that I'm not, you're snitching on yourself, and I want you to know that I'm not part of that. You know, that's the first thing I let them know. That, you need the law is going to come at you real hard at your family. It's a good thing that you turn yourself in. But I'm not down with that, you know. Don't say that AU brought you, and you know. So it's a lot of understanding young people and trying to change. Southeast Queens, there was 25 murders from July to August last year, and so one of the things we were successful out of those 25 murders, two different gangs that's going at each other, we were successfully able to stop the retaliation. There's not been another shooting between these two rival gangs. And it's work, you know, it's work, it's all day work, which is why, you know, I think what we're doing and what you're doing, Ina, what Sister Debra's doing, is so significant that you're bringing people together. That's going to change, because I'm always talking, like Crystal said, she's an action person. You know me, I'm always looking past the conversation. You know, what do we do next? William is talking about the money and the finances, you know, and stuff like that. And everybody has so much to give out. You know, I want them to know that I'm always here and I'm always a part of it. Let's do this. Let's make this happen. Our generations to follow up are dependent on us. They are dependent on us. We're at the moment.
Okay. There's one more important information I want to say. On the chat room, when you click the chat button, you'll get the chat screen where you see everybody important information that they left. On the right-hand corner, you have the word file, and you got 3 dashes. If you click on that icon, you'll be able to save the chat conversation, so you can have all the URLs for all the speakers that left some important information. So you'll be able to save that on your computer, and you'll be able to go to the website where they left the message at.
Wow. You got that? Everybody has that? And okay, I didn't ask for any donations, but anyway, I guess God is going to give me some donations. But I also wanted to say, you know, I do a Kwanzaa. The Kwanzaa is scheduled for December the 26th, so that's Oguamah, right?
Yes.
Woo! So I'm hoping my sister and I will again collaborate and doing the Kwanzaa. And it will possibly be here in the Bronx, but it will also be virtual. So now that we've got the kinks out of this, because this is my first time doing this, and we'll hopefully be a lot better at this. My background, I'm a community organizer, political, a political agitator, okay? Interviewing candidates throughout the metropolitan area for the past over 10 years. I just had to step down because there's so much corruption going on. But still, we still need those voices in order for any type of change, or at least those arguments up there. My background is in social work. I'm retired or disabled from that. I was out there in the crack epidemic.
10 minutes.
Probation, parole, Federal Bureau of Investigator, outpatient clients that was released from the feds. So, and I went into all those places without a gun, okay? Went up in crack dens and knocked down doors, but just little me and getting people help instead of getting them locked up. So I spent a lot of sleepless nights at 100 Center Street and 500 Pearl, trying to get our people in a better direction. And I have to say, a lot of them have. Now they have children, they have homes, they graduated, they reunited with their families, and they are learning their education as well, and it takes that. So we all advise people, I advise people to travel. How I met Evelyn was about my grandmother's DNA, but it turned out to be about my DNA, my background, what part did I play. My grandmother belonged to an organization, and it's in Brooklyn. The building, the house is still there. It's called the Order of Tents. I thought my grandmother was an Eastern Star, but she was a member of the Order of Tents, one of the oldest Black women's organization that started before or during slavery. It was a way that Black women would gather together to make sure that loved ones that had escaped find their loved ones, bury their loved ones, care for their loved ones, and a lot of times, of course, help their loved ones to get to freedom as well. And I didn't know until my grandmother passed away that she belonged to this organization, and that it was still, the house was still there in Brooklyn. So again, a lot of history that I recently learned, and that brought me to Bedford-Stuyvesant in Brooklyn to their community board. So again, something that I've always been a part of, a lot of cultural events in Brooklyn. And now I even had a greater connection that I had no idea of. So, and it brought me down south to St. Helena's. And St. Helena's is, my grandmother was Geechee Gullah. And we have land from 1865, and we still have that land to this day. And I am heir of that property. And we have a very rich culture. Of course, you know, they're trying to tell our Geechee Gullah story as we speak. They come down there, they want to write books, they want to film stuff, and they want to try to find ways to get us off of our land through taxes or naming and claiming people's land.
So, you know, I know we're gonna have to move on because it is time to end the program. But she made a very
real quick.
Okay.
I was associate producer on the film Daughters of the Dust.
Wow, I love that. So
Okay.
we're gonna talk, and I'm a Geechee girl. My mother's Geechee, so I relate to that. But I just want to say we do have
Daughters of the
Can
Dust.
you hear me?
Who worked on Daughters of the Dust?
I was a producer.
My daughter's name is I Adore Her.
I adore it, yes.
Yes, from that movie, yes.
Okay, so we can end. Oh, Ina, what happened? Ina, unmute.
Hi.
Unmute yourself. Say it again. You was muted.
Hello, am I muted?
Yeah, you was muted for some reason. Go ahead.
I don't know. But you know, we do have to leave this platform, but I do want to say one thing that I'm inspired to say is that many of us have land and many of us don't know what to do with it. And that might be another thing on the economic side that we need to pull together and come up with ideas, because everybody, I meet so many people, they don't have a pot to piss in, a window to throw in, but I have land, but what are we doing with that land to create wealth? And I think we have so many conversations that we really need to have that we don't have. We don't sit around the table and do something with that, but I will save that for, you know, another time. Again, I think a few of us have other deadlines and dates. Like I even really do have to get off the off this platform. But thank you so much. Thank each and every one of you. If we can just all say together.
Mahagani.
I was gonna say Kwanzaa, Juneteenth, or something, but y'all could come up with a word. Abaragani.
Abaragani.
Okay. 1, 2, 3. Abaragani.
I say.
Okay, we got to do better than that. 1, 2, 3. Abaragani. Okay.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Everyone have a good evening.
All right, take care. Thank you.
Peace and blessings.
Peace and blessings. Okay, I'm gonna end it.
Across the country have drawn people from all races and backgrounds. And I want to read from an op-ed signed by more than 40 civil rights organizations in the Miami Herald called "Latinos Must Acknowledge Our Own Racism, and Then We Must Pledge to Fight It." And they acknowledge that they have failed to grapple with anti-Blackness that exists in their own community, writing,